Personality Hacker Plus. Joel Markwood here with Antonia Dodge, Jonathan Harden. Producing today is Karina Gunyon. We are live. This is June 2nd, 2024. Already in the month of June. Jonathan, I don't know if you're like me, but I'm exhausted today because we just got back from Seattle late last night. We just flew in from Seattle last night from doing our 5-day profile training event. I don't know, how are you feeling? You got some rest?
I did. I got plenty of rest. Glad to hear you got some rest as well.
Yes.
About the third day of rest, I think I was like itching, ready to start doing things, and all of a sudden, summer camp started at the place we live, and so it is crazy busy here today. Just all the kids arriving, so there's a lot of hustle and bustle. So
well, that's good.
yeah. It's funny. Like sometimes when there's a lot of activity going on around me, I'll surf that activity.
Right.
One of my friends, Sarah INTP, talked about getting into the slipstream of other people's dominant functions. And when there's a lot of like SC energy, I actually can get a lot of things done. So I fixed my car. I got, just all kinds of stuff cleaned up and taken care of. So
Awesome.
That's my new exploration item, is to figure out what are the slipstreams of other people's personalities I can hop into.
Yeah. We're in this slipstream of doing nothing and eating, because even though we did fly in late yesterday, we were able to sandwich in like a little bit of a vacation, like a little rest, which we don't get. We don't get those. Like we work time. We work constantly. And so we were able to get like 4 days where we popped up from Seattle to Victoria, BC, which if you have not yet been, is an absolutely delightful city. It's like a total gem on the west coast of the United States. Well, it's in Canada, but it's like a jewel of the western portion of North America. And it's just a delightful little city. And so we went to museums and we walked around, we just like took in the sights and just ate an astonishing amount of food. And it was awesome. It was fabulous. So, yeah.
I am very proud. I'm going to say that. I'm just so proud of you guys.
Yes. Because rest is the thing we don't do. Like that's for other people.
Absolutely. It is rest is a very, and I think for me personally, that's one of the torches I bear in life, is just, we need to have ways to factor in rest. And yes, there's a time for work. And I mean, you guys have definitely figured out how to do things, bloody stumps across the finish line. You've got that nailed down.
We do.
And to hear that you got like, treating yourself to a wonderful West Coast experience, that makes my heart happy as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, Joel's still kind of contending with the whole rest thing, but I think he's actually doing it pretty well.
Well, how much does being in Canada? Were you in Canada during this time?
I was.
Yeah.
Yes. I will say the Canadian people are very corrective. They're very corrective people. Like, I can't tell you how many every day I'm getting corrected on my behavior. Like, don't walk there. Don't do that. Do this. You're not supposed to say that. Don't touch the geese.
Yeah.
Don't. That was a very specific one.
That was very,
because
don't touch the geese was like, somebody let us know that geese can give you a concussion.
Yeah, you have to be extremely dangerous. It's like, really, Canadians? Like, I didn't sign up for elementary school. I didn't want to go to elementary school today. I just want to come visit your country. I don't have to have behavior control at all moments.
But to be fair, that also happened in Washington State. There was a little
bit of that too.
Let's just say like hall monitors have become a thing.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
Like really tall hall monitors.
Here in Pennsylvania, I'm not used to the top down control.
A little bit more apathy here.
I don't know. Yeah. It's all good though. I made it through.
Yeah.
You did. Well, I mean,
beautiful area. Yeah, go ahead.
Are you going to hear the end of it? Is what I'm wondering now. Is this, I don't know, is this your first trip to Canada?
No. I've been many times.
Okay.
This is not Canada. This is the West Coast.
Okay.
Yeah, the West Coast is a little passive aggressive.
I don't know. That's how I found
it has become a little like hall monitory, passive aggressive.
Like, what is going on?
Yeah, but
go back to Pennsylvania.
That's okay. I figured out, I was like, oh, this is just a bunch of hall monitors. Not a bunch, but there's enough of them that they think they can get away with it. So now I'm just like, all right, hall monitor. Like,
it's all right.
See, so I grew up in Texas, right? And I'm feeling like it's probably a very different experience.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yep.
I think that yes, it would be a very different experience. I like the Pacific Northwest though. Don't get me wrong. It's like beautiful. Really beautiful up there. They have palm trees, like even in southwestern Canada in Victoria. I was like, this has palm trees. This is weird. It was like, and then We were at Olympic National Park. We drove past that. It's like basically a rainforest,
Mm.
and it never stops raining in certain parts of it. There's parts that like
Don't even have birds.
I don't think they have birds chirping because it's
Mhm.
raining like constantly,
Mhm.
like just constant rain.
Mhm.
And we went to like the other part of it, the more dry part of it. It was actually a really, really great
Gorgeous.
national park. Mount Rainier is beautiful. I got caught in a snowstorm. It was incredible.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was really good. But
So-
it's cold. I was wearing a coat the entire
All,
time.
all in all, a successful trip though, and a fabulous profile training.
Oh yeah,
Fabulous profile. Like,
probably
we
one of
were-
our best.
yeah, probably one of the best. Long days though.
And the most packed
Long
too.
days.
I think it was like just packed
So
like
many
13s.
people.
It was yeah.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
like 70 people in a room we had gotten before we knew there was going to be 70 people. So we were all squished in there like sardines at certain times, but it was so fun. It was a really
It
good
was really
time.
cool. One of the things that I mean, we might have mentioned this or last week on the live stream. Antonia and I were able to do brain imaging on the main stage live, which was really fun. It was more for fun than for like a clinical session.
Yeah,
But it was really cool because we got to
they threw
be goofy
curveballs.
and watch the brains light up.
Mhm.
And I would say my brain's way more active than Antonia's.
Somebody
I'm
said they're
still
still
very proud.
dreaming of balloon animals. So balloon animals were a thing that they forced us to do, and it was like by far and away.
Forced us is the
there
right
was-
word.
Yeah, forced. So we had to dance together, and we had to do improv together, and we had to do like there were all these things we had to do, but it was the balloon animals that Joel and I were both like, no, next, make a balloon
Pure
animal. And we're
torture.
like, no, that's not a thing that we do.
It's-
We don't do balloon animals.
Oh, this
So-
is the bad place. What I said to myself.
That's right. Oh, this is the bad place.
That's what I immediately had going through my head.
So I live on an animal camp, right? We have lots of animals, and I decided after I saw you dance together that your couple spirit animal is the peacock and the peafowl. in
I
which
knew
the-
it.
The woman is just like so delicately, like moving so gracefully and subtly, and then the male is like moving around, dancing and showy and
What are
distracted.
you saying, Jonathan? What are you saying?
You are right.
I'm terrified to see the video
Yes.
that was taken.
Well, and what's so funny is he
That's-
said when you were dancing together, and I was like, you mean when we were dancing in proximity to each other?
Yeah.
He said dance independently, but remain touching at all
Yeah, we
moments.
had to touch at all times, even though we're dancing independently.
For
And so
your
we had
brain,
to somehow.
brainwaves or something.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was
Uh,
crazy. Yeah.
We'll see
So-
the video and results. I'll see
Yeah.
if I pass the brain test.
Like I said, you're all limbs. When you dance, you're all limbs.
I don't think I'm gonna pass.
And it's more like just kind of like trying to get around the flailing.
Well, speaking of live events, we were actually in Philadelphia a few weeks ago, actually over a month ago,
Mhm.
for our Personal Life Path mentorship. And we had a group of people come in, go through that experience with us. It was fantastic. While we were there on the ground, we decided to record a live podcast with the audience that was available.
Hmm.
And so we're going to be bringing that out today. The full episode is going to be released today, but we thought we would zoom in on a clip. I think it was Major, right, in this clip
Mhm.
that we're going to go to,
Yeah.
asking a question about keeping personality types alive, like bringing the vivaciousness, the vitality to them, and creating like life around it. I think he asked a great question here. Tony and I addressed this a little bit in this clip. When we come back, I'd love to hear from other people in the Personality Hacker membership community. As we walk through these every week, again, we gather, we watch a clip together, and we unpack some of the learning from that, see if we can apply it to our lives and dig out some of the understanding. So when we come back, we'll go into some breakout rooms and talk a little bit about some of the concepts in this clip. So let's go there now, and we'll see everybody right after this.
Who has something they'd like to ask or discuss or talk about tonight? Anyone have something right here? Yes, come on down, give him a hand. Blowing out my levels. Okay, what's your name?
My name is Major.
Major. Where are you from, Major?
Herndon, Virginia.
Herndon. So you came up to Philadelphia for this.
I did, yes.
Fantastic. We're glad you're here.
Worth the drive.
Yeah. So tell us what's going on for you. What's a question or something you want to talk about tonight?
So the question that I have is for people who have done a lot of personal development work with their type already and even progressed on to, helping others do personal development work with their type as well. And when things start to get a little boring, they're not finding a lot of new information around typing. How do you keep the excitement up?
Wow. Okay. Is this something you personally struggle with?
Yes.
So you've been big into personality types and
For 5 years.
5 years, and you've studied it all. You've gone deep into it, and you're finding yourself a little bored with it?
Yeah, I feel like I've reached the end and I need maybe something else. I've thought about doing the profiler training, but I don't currently have an opportunity to use it for work. So I don't know where I would use that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And what's the problem? Why not just be bored and stop doing it? Like, why you're bored with it, so why not just give it up?
I
Why
think
do you
it's-
have compelled to keep going?
I enjoy it. I think it's valuable. I think it's a skill that I don't want to lose.
Yeah. Do you mind if I ask your preferences?
My preferences, I
Yeah.
don't mind.
Yeah.
Your best fit type.
Best fit type
ENTJ.
preferences. ENTJ preferences. Okay.
Uh,
What do you say, Antonia? We've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
Have we kept the spark alive in personality types?
I think that's a really valid question, actually. And I would ask you, how have you used type already?
For instance, on the personality type ENTJ resources, and I forget what it's called on your site, where there's resources for each type
Mhm.
or almost every type. I've read all of the books that were recommended. There's a list of about 25 books. I've read all of them. I've watched all of the movies, explored all of the topics,
Mhm.
read all the articles and the videos. And I've done some of that for other types and have, asked people their feedback on their personal growth journey. And so I've proven to myself that it works, that it's helpful, that it's a valid science, if you will, to apply to your life to help you make your life better and do what's best for your own design as a human being. And so it's kind of like I've already proven it to myself. What's next?
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that you consumed a lot of information around, particularly having ENTJ preferences. How have things changed in your life around knowing this information?
Self-awareness has gone up. Embracing the introverted intuition, knowing how it's set up to work and using it properly, whereas before I kind of ignored it. I definitely found where my tertiary function of extroverted sensing has kind of reared its head more than it probably should to be healthy. And so slowing down, getting into that, the bigger, higher level view of life and playing a bigger game, as I've heard you say so many times, Antonia, has really helped me to make more strides in my career, as well as my personal life.
Yeah. And have you, what kind of dive into introverted feeling have you done?
So as an ENTJ, you would have
I'm familiar.
introverted feeling or authenticity. I'm saying this for people maybe listening or watching too, just so we orientate people. This would be your 3-year-old or inferior process. Not for you. I know you know this major because you've been deep into type. I'm saying it for anyone else maybe listening for
Okay.
orientation.
My 3-year-old. I actually did the exercise that's recommended for the ENFP and ESFP, which is the core values. So I deep dove into some core values for myself. I found charity organizations that I could, play a part with, things of that nature. And I've gotten into a habit of asking myself how I feel or how I want to feel about a certain thing when tough issues come up.
Yeah, excellent. Do you mind if I ask how old you are?
I am 33.
33. Okay. The reason why I think this is such an interesting and great question is, as a practitioner, as somebody who uses it all the time and has been creating content around the subject for well over a decade, and also has ENP preferences. There can be a moment where we're just like, am I done? I think I might be done. Right? I've done this a lot.
That was like yesterday, right?
Yeah. Well, and I've gone through these cycles. I mean, on some level, it's like, well, am I just consuming more content and thinking about it more because like my profession relies upon it, or is there still a love for the topic? And so our friend Dr. Dario Nardi, he has a phrase that when he said it, I thought there's a key right there to understanding the value of these concepts of this system in the long term. He said, we can't talk about type until we talk about development, which means from his perspective, and I personally would agree with it, that the system does fall flat. It does lose some of its carbonation if we're only seeing it as knowledge to consume, if it's only input. right? If it's just information. And there's a model that we talk about on the podcast sometimes. I don't know if you've heard me say it, but it's called DIKW. It stands for data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. And each level builds on the previous. So data is just like basically, I just think of it as like bits, right? Like ones and zeros. That's data. And then information builds on data. So it's like organized data is information. It's information that can now be like something can be understood. And then when it's applied, it becomes knowledge. So now it's not just information that you hold in your head, but now it's now this is how it works in the real world. This is how I apply that knowledge to my life. And then finally, wisdom is it's the result of applied knowledge. It's when you get to that point where you realize what rules can be broken effectively, right? It's like that old adage, like knowledge is knowing tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not throwing it in a fruit salad, right? So when can something be?
Yes.
When can the rules be broken, right? When is it no longer just theoretical? When is it like truly practical? And I think type falls under the category of information for a lot of people. And I think when it's information we're consuming, I do think it hits a lot of diminishing returns. I really do. I think it's like, okay, so I've studied this. What's next? When we start applying it, when you start turning it into knowledge, I think that's when the spark comes alive again. I think we get recarbonated, re-excited by the content, because now we start to see where it's the right tool for the job and when it isn't. We start to create discretion. We start to go, okay, so because we can over apply type. In fact, a lot of people over apply type. They turn everything into type. I brush my teeth this way because I'm an ENTP, right? It's a massive over application. But there are moments when type becomes really powerful, when you start catching yourself in behaviors and realizing that type is the best tool for the job to both diagnose what's going on for me there and then also prescribe a way out. So I would say that anytime I hand my power over to other people, it is almost always a case of me being too into my extroverted feeling, because I'm favoring connection. I'm favoring relationship over what is personally true to me, over what makes sense to me. And I've been doing this for a million years, it feels like. I've done work around making sure I stay in my introverted thinking and supporting with extroverted feeling. And yet I probably did that just last week, right? And so to me, it feels like knowing my type preferences and applying them feels like the work of a lifetime. So does that mean I continue to consume absolutely every piece of information about type? I don't. Like, there are a lot of people who have created some pretty complex systems out there around type, right? And it feels like it just expands and expands and expands. It gets more complicated. There are more aspects to it. There are more data points. And I can appreciate that. I can understand why it's so interesting that you want to just keep flaying it out and flaying it out. But to me, that there's just a moment where I'm like, well, I guess if I keep shoving more information in my head, I'm going to have to lose something else, right? Like, if I keep learning about absolutely every square inch of every type system, I'm going to like lose my piano lessons from childhood or something. It's like, I just don't have enough room. But if I stay with the fundamentals, right? The fundamentals, and I keep seeing various styles of application, and I keep using it in like moments when Joel and I are in a fight and I want to wring his neck. And I'm like, why can we not figure this out? Why is it that this argument just keeps going? We've been having this battle for 5 years. Why can't we figure it out? And it almost always comes down to, I'm speaking a different language than he is. He has a very specific way of experiencing this reality that is his, and I have a very specific way of experiencing my reality. Type has turned into shorthand to make it so that we can sync up, right? And even if we don't end up actually like in that moment reconciling, we're a little further along than we were the last time, right? We're a little further along in that conversation because we have tools to be able to like go, well, my introverted thinking doesn't care what your introverted feeling says because it doesn't make any sense. And he's like, well, I don't care what the data says. I just feel this way. Right. And then that conversation, it becomes something more than just, no, you're wrong, I'm right. So,
Mhm.
so the answer is, and I already said this earlier. I'm a little tired, so I'm going to say 1,000 words when 10 words would do. But
That's okay.
the answer is application. It's how it maintains beauty to me. It's how it maintains interest. And then I'll tell you what I did. Okay,
Okay.
so buyer beware.
Okay.
This doesn't mean you. Don't write this down. All right. For me, it really reemerged. The spark really reemerged when I started to not just go back to basics, but source it all the way back to Jung.
Mhm.
When I read psychological types, right? That we've built an entire system, and by we I mean Isabel Briggs Myers and Catherine Briggs, but an entire system was built out of one chapter of that book. It's chapter 10,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I think it's like 5 out of the titles. I think there's like, I can't remember how many chapters there are, maybe 13 chapters or something, 12 or 13. I can't remember. But 5 of them has the word problem in it. The problem of type, the problem of this, the problem of this, the problem of this. And the reason why Jung kept saying like all of these things were problems is if we don't do hygiene on our mind, if we don't do psychological hygiene on a regular basis, it manifests as all sorts of problems, all sorts of problems. And he says if we don't handle them within ourselves as an individual, they play out in the political sphere. And so basically, if we don't get our shit handled, we bring it out to the rest of the world and we project it, and then we just constantly fight as a society. And then it ends up becoming all the political problems that we see. So going all the way back to Jung, going all the way back to the original intent, which is psychoanalysis, going all the way back to almost like a psycho-spiritual hygiene,
Mhm.
that is endlessly fascinating to me, endlessly fascinating. And understanding his work around archetypes and understanding his work around how to avoid one-sidedness, how to avoid becoming the kind of person that disavows parts of our identity because we don't want to see them, right? Won't acknowledge and won't own our shit, won't acknowledge and own our stuff, right? Just we'll turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah.
That's a schismed person.
Yeah.
And it's type. And of course, as I learn all this stuff, now I see how type and these systems all weave into it, and how they actually create this really sort of magical algorithm of how to avoid all of that stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now the landscape is it's not theoretical. It's not ones and zeros. It's not just math. It's not just like, well, what does it mean to have extroverted sensing as an 8th function or whatever? Like it's not just the theory of it or the information of it. Now it's like alive and rich, and it's keeping me from becoming a cardboard cutout version of myself when I become older, right? It's helping me enrich myself and become a whole person. And I recently read a quote, and I wish I remember her name. She's a person who marries Sufism with Jungian analysis. And she said that when a person, and I read this to people in our Personality Life Path program yesterday, when a person accepts all of themselves and is willing to do what Jung would call shadow work, there's a stillness about them. It's like their essential, like their nervous system is still, their body and their soma is still. And the reason why is they don't have to be nervous that somebody's going to reflect back to them something they don't want to see about themselves, because they accept all of it. They accept all of it. So there's no anticipation. There's no like nervousness. There's no fearing being triggered. There's none of that. They're just still. And she said that other people become still in their presence, because you can tell when somebody won't reject anything inside of themselves, so they won't reject anything inside of you either.
Mhm.
And so there's no need to be on edge. And so that stillness is contagious. That centered nervous system, that still soma, it's contagious. And now those people, their shit doesn't play out in the political sphere. So for me personally, the way that this always is fascinating to me, it's always interesting to me, is because it does that, right? It ends up in that realm. And that's always the work of a lifetime. That never ends. In fact, I'm going to die before I get to discover the most me.
Right. I'm going to die before I
Every
discover
day.
all of me. So that always stays interesting. Does that make sense?
That's a profound and helpful answer. I'm glad I asked the question. I'm glad you answered. Yeah.
So I would say, at the risk of trying to market or sell to you, I would just say that profiler training would be a fantastic starting point for anybody. I mean, if you're, or something like that, you're getting a practical methodology to apply it in almost a gamification way, and how to identify other people's personality types. I've seen a lot of people, that's the next level for them, is on the journey to what she just talked about. It's being able to do it in a more professional or more serious manner and be able to understand and profile people, not just from a distance typing them, but be able to have a conversation and be able to really dig in what's going on for them. Because it sets the groundwork for you to be changed and them to be changed after that profiling experience, right? As you talk about their personality type.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you don't have to join profiler training. We'd love for you to be part of it, but yeah, something like that where you put a discipline or a method to it. I think that it sounds like that's the next step for you. Some practical application of this in a more formal way is the principle-based, like, next lily pad. And then what she's talking about is available right after that, I think, on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So do you feel complete on the
I do. I feel
conversation?
complete, and I agree with you. I
Yeah.
think profiler training is something that I will do.
Cool. Well, we would welcome you if you decide to join. That's great. Give him a hand, everyone. Thank you so much. Who's next? Go ahead, LC. Yeah. Who's next? Now that we, come on up. Now that we had the real light start to the episode, let's get a little deeper.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Major, true to his word, joined. I just saw him like a week ago.
Yeah,
That's
we
cool.
saw Major.
In Seattle. So he joined Profiler Training. I think he had a fantastic experience, and I think that was a good answer, Antonia.
Oh, thank you.
Good thoughts around this. What do you think, Jonathan? What Antonia talked about?
Yeah, I remember when you said that, and I remember when I did profiler training back in 2016. I think I learned so much. And then I remember 2017, 2018, I thought, this is just useless information. I don't know what to do with this. I feel like I'm just typing. And there was no way I could reconcile it to make a difference in my life. And then I started seeing not just type as something to learn, but something to put into practice in my day-to-day life. Like, Jonathan, if you know this information, that your best fit type is ENFJ and your wife's best fit type is INTP, how can you use that information to enhance your life, to improve your life, to, like what Joel said, gamify the life so that I can actually solve some problems that have been hanging me up for a while? And the biggest one I realize is that we're both intuitives, but we're using two different intuitive patterns. I'm introverting my intuition, and she wants to extrovert it. And it was a massive light bulb. I was like, most of our arguments are around who is doing intuition better. And it was like, oh my gosh, like, and so that was the biggest. And also sensing too. We share different sensing functions. Who can do sensing better? And our little 10-year-olds fighting and quibbling over who is the more sensing of us. And it was like, that was like, oh my gosh, I can actually use this information. And then that's when the carbonation started popping up again around 2019. And it kind of brought personality type alive back in my life. But really, it's me coming alive and bringing personality type with me as a tool.
Yeah.
So it was, that was a penny drop moment for me.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a theory that a lot of our neurotic behaviors actually come from our 10-year-old or tertiary function. That's where, like, the source of a lot of our neurosis, and that tracks, right?
Yep. Pretty much.
That's the part of us. They're like, no, we're really awesome at this, right? Everybody tell me I'm really good at this. Please, please, please tell me I'm great at this. And so there's like these little neuroses that pop up all over the place. And so I find that a lot of our arguments are from our 10-year-olds as well. And I think that's just like one gem, right? That's one gem you can take away and go,
yes.
Well, what are all of our fights about? Could I source them back to that function in that position? And the answer is not always, but too often is where it comes from.
Well, and if I could share another story too, like how much it's changed my life. I thought, like, if I didn't have this alive in my life as a living, breathing organism, I believe my son is using extroverted thinking, either dominant or auxiliary. I could easily message to him that the best way to be a man is to be dominant, extroverted feeling. I could easily, unconsciously send that message. And what a massive leverage point to be able to say, like, actually, if your best fit type is this, even as a 14-year-old, you're going to get more mileage out of life if you operate in this function. And so I know going through the PLP, it was like, I mean, I'm just furiously taking notes on any time an ENTJ or an INTJ talk about their experience, because it's just revolutionized my life. And again, it's not just type, it's not just someone's best fit type or figuring out a 4-letter code. Much like profiler training, after you do the profiler training, you realize I had a connection, conversation, psyche to psyche experience with someone across the table from me.
Yeah.
And so it becomes alive because these are real people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That makes me think of how many people, and even at our or just a recent profiler training event in the 101 room, there was a number of people with TJ preferences that were salty about extroverted feeling, right? And that happens sometimes, right? Like it'll be a disproportionately high number of certain types, and they will have an experience with a certain function. And sometimes it's the reverse. Sometimes it's the FJs complaining about extroverted thinking. Sometimes it's the FPs complaining about, like, like it's always something, right? And this time it just happened to be the TJs being salty about extroverted feeling. And so, you try to go like, well, there's this conversation for every type and every function, right? There's a version of this that you will hear. If you do enough of these, you will hear almost every iteration of this conversation. But what's the two things that came up for me as you were talking is remembering that I think one of the challenges sometimes of applying this and making it not theoretical is one of the first phases you have to go through is a little anger. Like part of the work is getting angry at how unfair it all feels if you feel on the receiving end of a world that doesn't feel like it was made for you, which is crazy because particularly with people with TJ preferences, all the other types are like, oh, it's an extroverted thinking world, right? All the other types look at TJs and are like, oh, you're so lucky. You're so lucky that this is your world. But as somebody with TJ preferences, they can go, what are you talking about? I have problems all over the place. And it's because it doesn't matter what our type is.
Yes.
There are aspects that are suited to us and a bunch of aspects that are not. And so part of it is kind of getting a little salty about it all, kind of getting a little angsty. But if you can move through that and get to the other side, the other thing it offers is a way through the injustice, like the feeling of injustice, the feeling of anger, a feeling of frustration, right? Like you type or profile all the people in your family, and you're like, that's what was the problem the whole time, right? Like, and they've sourced all of these, all of these problems. And then on the other side, if you do enough of the work, it will give you, acceptance. It will give you like, oh, there is a version of this for everybody, literally everyone. So it's not whether or not you have this experience, it's how you're going to navigate through the experience. And if you don't navigate through it very well, then you never lose the saltiness. You never lose that little, right? The little frustration about how unjust it all is. But if you can move to the other side, now you can use this awareness to like have patience with people, understand that they're going through something that's very similar to yours, but it might look like, I don't know, like a photo negative version of it. It might look like the same, but opposite. And now you've got a little bit of space to hold. And now you've got a little bit of like, yeah, I get it. I totally understand. That's a very human experience. Even if all of the trappings and the content is a little different, the context, right, stays the same. And so I think that that's the magic of the system. Dario said something at our live event. I think it was one of the evening, or maybe it was the last day. I can't remember. I don't remember if it was his bonus day or if it was one of the evening sessions we had. But he said, the magic of type is that it doesn't take away the work. It just tells us what work to do. And that's where we graduate to the next level. That's where we level up, is when we stop thinking learning the model is going to do the work for us. And I think this is one of the reasons why we get kind of obsessed with learning every square inch of every type model, is because we're hoping that if we consume the information, it'll start doing the work for us. But that's not its job. Its job is to not do the work for us. Its job is to tell us what work to do and eliminate all of these dead ends, eliminate all this work that actually isn't our work to do. It's to go, oh, I'm playing whack-a-mole with my ESFP daughter's emotions, right? Like I'm doing that to her because I don't get it, because I don't understand the bigness of her emotions. I'm doing that to her. Oh, that's the work I need to do. Right. And so yeah, it's this subject is near and dear to my heart. So I tend to go on and on about it. But yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
You did preach it,
I did.
Antonia. Just joining us, welcome to the live stream. Person Hacker membership, Joel Markwood, Antonia Dodge, Jonathan Harden. Producing today is Karina Gunyon. We did mention in that clip Profiler training. You should join Profiler training if you're watching this and even part of this program. We're going to open up enrollment in about a week or so. The 18th of /webinar. We can go over some of the details. We're going to talk about the 4 pillars of a profiling session, how to deconstruct personality, a bunch of stuff. Come and join us live for that webinar. We'd love to have you there. If you are here on the membership, I think it's time to do some breakout rooms and have some conversation around this. So, and let's go ahead and do that first. Here's the question. As we go into breakout rooms, Karina, let's go ahead and prepare, 3, 4 people in a room. Here's the question I want you to talk about. 12 minutes on the clock. We come back, we'll hear from a couple people in the general session. But what action or change did you make to your life after learning about your personality type? What tangible action or change did you make to your life? It could be something small, like, oh, I don't know, whatever it would be. I set up my desk differently in my office, so my back's to the wall, because I learned that I'm supposed to have my back to the wall or something. It could be something very simple like that, or it could be something life-changing. It could be really a big deal too. But what action or change did you make in your life after learning your personality type? So let's go ahead in those breakout rooms. We'll see everybody back here in 12 minutes. Hear from a couple people, talk about your experience as you open up this energy. We're going to talk about pretty much the 3 hero challenges, right? Right now, we're tuning into more of the philosophical challenge, kind of the ideas here. We're also going to go and do some journaling in a few minutes with our members, tune into more of the inner space. And then at the very end, we're going to give a quest out, which gets people into action in the outer world, to tune into their outer world challenges and find out what's going on for you in the outer space. If you're just still here on the live stream, again, I recommend heading over to personalityhacker.com/webinar. We'd love to have you join us for a webinar coming up on the 18th of June, where we're going to go through our new profiler training enrollment. It's opening up for a brand new class. We're going to be meeting up for the live event in November of 2024. And we'd love to have you part of this cohort. We just had 70 people attend in Seattle, Washington, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. We had Dr. Dario Nardi join us as a special guest. The Seattle Association of Psychological Type were some guests as well. We had people coming from all over. We're also doing live EEG brain imaging there. Tony and I did some on the main stage. Hopefully I'll have a video for you soon to watch of us doing that. It was a fantastic event.
It was pretty fun.
Dario did a special on the last day. If you're just watching a live streams, after we ended this, we had Dario continue. Dr. Nardi, he did some extra content. He talked about RNA, which is really interesting. The concepts of what is, from your personality type's viewpoint, what is your responsibility, your karmic responsibility as a representative of your personality type? He talked about the neuroses, the neuroticisms. Both of those words are accurate, I think, in this phase. He talked about that coming from your personality type. Where do those show up? Tony just mentioned earlier, our 10-year-old or tertiary function can often be the source of those. We talked about that in the session. Then we also talked about aspirations. Often there's parts of our personality, maybe even parts that are a little bit challenging for us to own or have a relationship with. They bring us information about what we aspire to do in our lives. So there's this aspirational elements. We talked about the responsibilities, the neurosis, and the aspirations or opportunities we might have in front of us based on our type. It was a really great discussion. We filmed most of it. Hopefully that'll end up as a bonus in one of Dr. Nardi's programs. But I thought that was a really extra good day that we had there.
Yeah, for sure.
The profiler training.
Yep. Yeah. So we're, as Joel mentioned, we're opening up a new class very soon. If you're interested, please join us for the webinar. If you're watching us on the live stream on YouTube, I just put the link in the chat, and it is a rollicking good time.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to go head back with our members right now to do some more discussion and dig more into this topic of making personality types come alive in your life. Joel Markwood, Antonia Dodge, we will talk to you next week.